It's game day for Nebraska basketball in Ann Arbor. Is this the biggest week in the history of the Huskers program?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day.
All right, welcome Tuesday here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. I feel like if we're going to be diving headfirst into basketball, which we most certainly are, we need like basketball intros, you know? So maybe we could get a guy and he's like, 6 foot tall out of Gretna. It's Mitch Sherman. It is a dilemma. It is. So, they wouldn't be the most like flattering things, but we could like pick a number or something like that. It might as well just get all the way full into basketball season.
He's 51 years old and has a tough left hand. I don't know what we would say. It's not good. It's not going to be flattering. It's not going to impress anyone. It's probably going to make people want to turn off the show if we go in that direction.
Yeah, right. But either way, we will continue to talk about Nebraska basketball, who takes on Michigan tonight. This is a Peacock game. The Big Ten doesn't have the ability to flex it out of Peacock or anything like that. So
top 5 on Peacock.
So by the way, speaking of the broadcast, just real quick, the broadcast this evening, Paul Burmeister, who once played quarterback at Iowa, and Nick Stauskas, former Michigan Wolverine basketball player. That's the broadcast crew you get today.
I'm sure everyone watching from Nebraska is going to just truly love that. So if you're going to complain about Peacock, this is the last game of the year that Nebraska will play on Peacock, unless there's something in the Big Ten tournament. And
no, Nebraska will not be involved in the Peacock part of the Big Ten tournament.
Are those like the first 4? Yeah. Okay. They will not. Not with 10 conference wins at this point. Is it 10? Are they 9?
It's 9. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't count this one yet. It's the last game of the year on Peacock for Nebraska, and it's $8 a month. So if you are going to complain about it, just pay the $8 for this month, and then you can cancel and you can watch the game, or you can go to a sports bar.
If you have YouTube TV, there's a little thing called a little channel popped up called NBC Sports Network, and it just plays all the stuff that's on Peacock. So you're good. You don't even have to. Is
that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is an interesting development. I have Peacock,
but
I might check it. I might have to check it out I got multiple options now. I don't know. What are you going to do for that? Is this going to be like an event? I mean, feels like a football game day almost, like the anticipation of the day. Number 3 versus number 5, Nebraska up to number 5 in the poll today. Like one of those days where it's kind of hard to really get a whole lot done until the game at night, because you're just waiting for the game at night. Like this is a uncharted territory for Nebraska hoops, right?
Yeah, I'm locked in. I'm couch from about 7 o'clock. Well, 6. What do they play at 6 or
6.
7?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah, I'm couched from about 6 to 10:30 because the
Jays are on after.
Yeah, if you would have told me that Creighton and Marquette and Michigan and Nebraska are playing back to back, like which game has more significance, and it's one of them by like a landslide, not even remotely close, I probably would have guessed Creighton and Marquette. But it's unbelievable, the chasm between those two games at this point for a local sports fan.
We're going to do, you have to get off the couch for a few minutes because we're going to do a podcast tonight.
Podcast from my couch
on Wednesday morning. We could do it from our respective couches. I could do it from the bar. Might go to the bar and watch the game and then just stumble back in and do how about that? If I'm like 3 or 4 tall boys in and
now we're talking.
I don't know if that would be a good idea.
You just got done watching Rink Mast and Yaxel Landenborg just go at it for 2 hours. They're like, I need a podcast. I need to do a podcast right now. Get this man a microphone.
Yeah, that would be something. So we'll do a podcast on Tuesday night after Nebraska finishes, and it'll be a little anticlimactic if the Huskers lose. But I think we should say this right off the top. Somebody asked me today, well, if Nebraska loses this game, is that going to really take a lot of the wind out of the sails of Nebraska basketball here right after they get a number 5 national ranking for the first time in school history? I mean, they're deep into the highest ranking in school history. That happened last week before the Huskers even got to number 5. No, it does not. Like there's not. It's more exciting for Nebraska, yes, if the Huskers somehow go into Ann Arbor and get a victory. But if not, you still have Sunday in a top 10 matchup with Illinois coming to PBA and a 20-1 Nebraska team that's still ranked number 5, and the chance to get a top 10 win and split this week, which would likely still leave Nebraska in the top 5 or 6 in the country. So no, there's nothing that can come out of this from the results standpoint that should dampen your excitement for Nebraska basketball. The Wolverines are the only team this year to beat Gonzaga. And I think, as we mentioned Monday on the show, Michigan beat the Zags by 40. And Gonzaga is a top 10 team.
Yeah, they're really good. It would probably I don't think it should take any of the wind out of the sails, but like maybe it just takes like a little bit of the. No, I mean there's no way that Sunday isn't an absolute, like there's no way that Sunday isn't like one of the best, if not the best crowd in Pinnacle Bank Arena history. I mean, especially if Nebraska wins tonight at Michigan, or if they don't, they lose by 1, or if they lose by 10, or if they lose by 30, it's still going to be really good because Nebraska is in the mix, in contention, at the top of contention at this moment.
Yep.
For a conference championship, and that will still be the case if they lose to Michigan, or obviously if they win as well.
So the question that we posed at the beginning, is this the biggest week in Nebraska basketball history? Some have said this week that it's a no-brainer, that it's not even close, that this is it. You're ranked number 5, you're playing number 3, you're playing number 9. What else would even get into the conversation? Are you in that camp?
I mean, probably without thinking about it much. I mean, obviously there's still the dance, and all of the previous dances that have happened before this. Getting that first one would automatically sort of make it the biggest thing that's I think probably ever happened. But at the same time, like I don't know, winning a conference championship is, for. Like the only thing that's standing in between that being the biggest thing ever, bar none, for Nebraska basketball is like one singular NCAA tournament win, which obviously they don't have. But if they have that monkey off their back at this point, you'd be like, oh my God, yeah, they're going for a regular season conference championship in the Big Ten in 2026. Like this is the biggest thing. So it is, I think, on paper, but obviously there's still the tournament monkey, right?
I think it depends on your definition of the biggest. Is it the most nationally relevant that Nebraska has ever appeared? Absolutely. Not even a question. To be number 5 and play a couple of top 10 games in a span of 5 days. Yeah, for sure. But the biggest week, like what was the most significant? Well, if they win these 2 games, then that probably goes to the top of the list. Right now, I think I'd still look at it and say, there's never been a bigger week in Nebraska basketball history than the week that it won the Big 8 tournament championship from March 11th to 13th, 1994. In the middle of that 3-game stretch, 3 games in 3 days, was a win against number 3 Missouri on the court in Kemper Arena in Kansas City, where the Tigers had a decided home court advantage. So I know I'm going back 30 plus years. I remember that. And it was basketball fever. There are the stories about Nebraska winning the tournament, and the Huskers beat Oklahoma State, which was also ranked nationally, to win the tournament. Nebraska went into that thing on the bubble. The Huskers, where I looked this up today, were 17-9 going into Kansas City the week of that tournament. Beat Oklahoma, Missouri, and Oklahoma State on back-to-back-to-back days. And then knowing that they had their ticket punched to the dance and were off the bubble, they drove home and got word that they were going to play Penn in the NCAA tournament, like while they were on I-29, and the fans parked cars and lined the Highway 2 stretch back to Lincoln from Nebraska City. So to just throw that one away and say that wasn't the biggest week in Nebraska basketball history, I think is doing a disservice to what Danny Nee and his team did 32 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt. But we are definitely about to see another big red fever. I mean, I can't wait to see what it looks like on Sunday. It's like this game on the road against Michigan is its own thing, but you come back home, whether it's a win or a loss, with that number 5 next to you and a chance to sweep Illinois, who just beat Purdue on the road, like it's a whiteout. I mean, it's gonna be a whole new level. I mean, I imagine we'll be having the conversation at some point this week. Like, is this going to be bigger than No Sit Sunday? And my initial thought is yes. You can't it's tough to replicate the exact circumstances that No Sit Sunday was.
So it was a bubble thing.
Because it was a bubble thing, right? And you needed the win badly. This is a different level. And I do feel like we're reaching this kind of fever pitch. And who knows, it could get bigger as we go into February.
Yeah, the Purdue game on February 10th could be even bigger than what you see on Sunday against Illinois. So it's all exciting. And then Nebraska has 2 games against Iowa, and we'll talk about their schedule a little bit the rest of the way and what might have to happen for the Huskers to get a 1 seed. We'll talk about that in the next segment, but just a quick update here from Monday. Fred Hoiberg had some media availability, and the most important thing that he mentioned was that Braden Frager, Nebraska's freshman wing player who has the left ankle sprain, hurt last Wednesday against Washington, has been practicing and doing well the last couple of days since his teammates returned home from Minneapolis, and had the boot off and was making, quote, great progress. According to Hoiberg, he said Frager would be a game time decision on Tuesday night. And then so he's making the trip, right? And Fred said, well, we still have to decide if he's going to make the trip. And that's already happened. As we tape this show, it's Monday evening. The team is there. The team is there in Ann Arbor. Saw the photos of them getting off the plane. They didn't tell us if Frager was on the plane or not. So if he's not on the plane, then that makes the decision really easy. He's not playing, obviously. If he is on the plane, I don't really know what the point is of taking him if you're just going to sit him on the bench. Of course, you want to see how he responds to treatment on Tuesday and if he continues to get better. But there's a possibility, at least there was midday Monday, that Braden Frager would play in this game against the Wolverines.
Yeah, you got to see if he's there first, and to that we don't know yet. I still have a hard time seeing him going. Given that there's a little bit of an extended, like you go Tuesday, Sunday this week, like you just get 4 more days to get off it a little bit. Like that feels ideal to me, but like all signs point to him being good to go on Sunday at this point. I couldn't tell you about tonight. I couldn't tell you about Tuesday. It doesn't feel great to me. But maybe they decide, hey, we need that extra juice tonight.
Let's come back and ask that question, that even if he is feeling well, should Nebraska play him against Michigan? That is after this message. All right, this is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward segment. For those who show, there's more to the score than what's on screen. Right now, what we do in this segment each week is we highlight a fan or a player or a coach. We'll see if we ever do a fan, or a moment that defines what matters in sport. And as we discussed Monday on the show, we can't think of a better player to start this off with than Sam Hoiberg, because he is always moving the game forward with his play on defense, with his spark on offense, with his savvy leadership for Nebraska on the basketball court. Sam Hoiberg is showing what it takes to raise the bar, and the results of extra work done off the court. He dials in every detail. He provides fire. He gives that I never quit kind of grit. Mazda puts that same passion into every model of vehicle. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen of the day, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. All right, more Nebraska ball. We ended that first segment with this question, and it sounds ridiculous on its face. If Braden Frager is ready to go and feels good tonight, should Nebraska consider just sitting him?
I mean, you do without knowing the particulars and exactly, what's the risk assessment of if you put him out there, like the re-injury thing. Like I don't know the answer to that question. Only he and the trainers do. I lean toward thinking a little bit more about the future. It's not I'm always weird with this stuff because you never know. He could go out there and play 30 minutes and be great, and it's like nothing ever happened. But you just don't know until you know, right? So I would probably lean toward taking it easy, but we just don't know exactly how that trajectory's been for him over the last couple of days. If he feels good to go, and he gives some sort of indication that he wants to give it a go, and the trainers are good with that, then I'm good with that. I don't think you need to sit him out of like a too much of an abundance of caution, but I do think you should probably exercise a little bit of caution here.
Yeah, I'd say not 100%. He's a no-go for me because you've built yourself a cushion with this 20-0 start. You built yourself a cushion like you've never had before. And in that conversation that we just had about the biggest week in Nebraska basketball history, everybody around the program wants that to be a moot point by the time you get to March, because the biggest week in the history of Nebraska basketball should be right in the range of March 18th to 22nd. And if everything breaks right, the next weekend too. That should end the conversation right there. And the best chance that you have to do that is to have a healthy 7 or 8 man rotation when you get to the NCAA tournament. And the hard part is if you sit Frager because, hey, he's only had 5 days to rest this thing since he hurt it against Washington on Wednesday night, 6 days. I mean, counting Tuesday, I guess would be the 6th day. You rest him out of an abundance of caution. Say you rest him again on Sunday because he's just not feeling quite right, and you get that week of rest before Nebraska goes to Rutgers. He could go and injure it. He could step in the wrong way at Rutgers, and you could do everything right to avoid what you see as a dangerous situation, and he could hurt it again. He already hurt it once this year early in the season in non-conference play, so it's kind of a chronic deal for him to have ankle issues. So I'm kind of leaning toward be cautious with the freshman, and unless he feels 100%, he should probably wait until Sunday. And they may have chosen to do that in even letting him get on the plane on Monday. We'll find out about that later today.
I have a question for you that just randomly popped into my mind that should lead into our next topic here with Nebraska ball. We're going to talk about, what it would take for them to be at the top, what it would take for them to be a 1 seed. I was just thinking about, it's such an interesting confluence, right? Like you have this team that's never won an NCAA tournament game before. People are starving for it. And then at the same time, it's a possibility that they are a 1 or a 2 seed, like they've been a 3 and lost before. I don't know how it felt when they lost to Xavier as a 3. I don't know what I don't know if it was like, but was it like a build up to like, oh, we've never won an NCAA tournament game before? What was there that, because it's kind of another 30 years now.
No, because first of all, I don't remember it that well. Right. I was around, I was watching. I'm not that old. I wasn't yet in college or I wasn't going to games in 1991. I was in high as a kid. I was barely driving a car, and I know you were what
91.
Yeah, not yet around. Yeah, you were almost. All right, we're not gonna do the math.
Right.
So but right, they'd only had what I think one or two NCAA tournament appearances before that. So there was none of this. Nebraska's never won a tournament game. I mean, the Huskers had not won a tournament game, but in very few opportunities. So it was definitely a different kind of drought that Nebraska was experiencing then. And I much more remember the loss to Penn after the 94 Big 8 tournament championship, and because I watched that on campus in Lincoln as a freshman, and that was very disheartening because you'd watch this team do great things the week before.
Makes perfect sense, right? It was their second NCAA tournament appearance, but like my brain took me to Oklahoma City in 8 weeks or 7 weeks or whatever it is, and it took me to the handshake line after Nebraska, drubs Long Island for their first ever NCAA tournament win. It's just like handshake, salute the crowd, get out of here. We'll see you on Sunday. They're not
going to be doing a lap around the court and like partying and hugging the fans. That's not when they've got a round of 32 game in 48 hours.
And then I thought, like, well, what do they play early on Thursday or do they play late on Friday? Like, if you have to wait 2 full days of NCAA tournament basketball, like they get like a 6 o'clock game on Friday or something like that, and it's like,
they should cut down the nets. They should cut down the nets as a 2 seed if they or a 1 seed. You beat a 16, and you're gonna have a net cutting what I almost said something different there. They're gonna have a net cutting ceremony there if they. After winning a first round game. So what do they need to do? What does Nebraska need to do to be a 1 seed? And of course it's not a flat number because not all wins are created equal. You win tonight, you don't have to win as many of the other games with a victory on the road at Michigan against Michigan on your resume. But just all things being equal, you say it basically goes according to form. What do you think would need to be the number? Nebraska is 20-0 and has 11 games left in the regular season. We're not even going to count the Big Ten tournament in this mess.
And that wouldn't really factor much in anyway. Those are pretty much decided by then. So I'll tell you this: they're currently projected on KenPom to go 28-3 and 17-3 in the league, with losses to Michigan, Iowa. And then like it's an aggregate loss. Like there's a couple 1-point wins in there, right? So somewhere else. If you're 28-3, 17-3, depending on that who that third loss is to, I think that might be enough. Like
28-3 is a 1.
Yeah. They're projected to be that at this very moment.
Now, there's a bunch of crazy records out there. I mean, Michigan being one of them, and then you have Gonzaga, but there's in Arizona. You're starting to see teams get picked off, and Purdue lost twice last week, and Iowa State, which was undefeated, lost twice the week before that, and then Houston was a 1-loss team and lost on Saturday. So things are starting to even out just a bit. I don't think you're going to go into March 15th or whenever Selection Sunday is and have like 6 or 7 teams sitting there with 1 or 2 losses, which would be something that could prevent Nebraska at 28-3 from getting a 1 seed. It's gonna look relatively normal. Arizona might run the table, but it's gonna look relatively normal for what a Selection Sunday looks like. I think 27-4 can do it. I think 27-4 can and probably should be a 1 seed. Nebraska's non-conference strength of schedule is kind of problematic because it's like around 300, but it wasn't like they dodged everybody. And I know that the committee is going to look at the number that gets spit out, and that's unfortunate because Nebraska does have the wins against Oklahoma and Kansas State and Creighton, and that number gets way dragged down because some of these bye games against teams that you just throw on the schedule, those teams have had bad seasons. And I don't think you should lose a 1 seed because your teams that you played in bye games crap the bed through December, January, and February.
No, I think a good way to look at it is probably like the Big Ten champion, the Big Ten regular season champion is probably going to be a 1. I mean, so that's a good thing to set your sights on.
3 losses get you the Big Ten championship. I think 3 might. I don't think 4 does. 4 does not.
It'd be close at that point, depending on how.
4 would not.
Michigan, Illinois, Michigan State, Nebraska are probably the 4 teams in the running for that at this moment.
Yeah. All right. It's interesting. Let's come back and talk a little more hoops, and then we'll talk some football recruiting too. We got that on the agenda for the end of today's show. That is coming up next.
TurboTax tax season is coming up, but it doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or, of course, you can connect online as well. They have everything from W-2s to self-employed forms that you're going to need to get that submitted, and then they will take care of the rest. Big time saver, and it's going to give you that peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it for you. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, all you have to do is file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, welcome back. Anything else we want to wrap up with basketball before we move on to football?
Yeah, one more topic. I think Rink Mast is a huge key in tonight's game, and Rink has been a bit off, you could say, the last few weeks. So he was getting mentioned for midseason All-American, and he still shows up on some of those lists just because of the reputation that he built through the first big chunk of the season. 6 games in the past 3 weeks since Nebraska went. I believe that started with the Ohio State game, the Ohio State-Indiana week. So 6 games in 3 weeks, he's averaging 9.8 points, shooting just 20% from three-point range, 6 of 30, and 37.1% overall. Now, there's so much more to measuring his impact than just looking at the shooting numbers. But I think Nebraska needs to get more than a 9 or 10 point game from Rink Mast going into Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they need to get everything from everyone in a game like that. At the same time, you just look at where that has been replaced by, like, Rink is probably in a little bit of a cold spell right now, as you mentioned, especially shooting the three at the moment. Although it hasn't been like horrible, he's still a threat, right? But Price Sanford has made up for that with his absolutely torrid run that he's on right now. So you could do, and he's still operating the same way, right? Like he's still kind of the head of the snake as far as the offense is concerned. If he can,
goes through him.
Yeah, if he can make the shots, obviously Nebraska becomes more dynamic on offense. But I don't know. I've heard people talking about this week. I'm not like particularly concerned, or really even thinking about it that much. Obviously he's kind of the guy on the team, so I get it. But you're getting the production. So if it has to be displaced, then that's the case.
The only way I would be concerned is if I was worried that he was hurt because the knee from last year and there's some wear and tear for sure, and that thing is probably always, it's going to be an issue for him at some point again in his basketball career. That's not really what he looks like. I just think he's lost a little bit of his rhythm, and he just needs to find it. Whether it's one day the shots fall and he has a 30-point game and then he's back, or maybe it happens through practice, or maybe teams take some of the attention that they're focusing on him, and they have already started doing this and put it on Price Sanford or Jamarcus Lawrence, and Rink just gets in a groove and he rides it through. He's so veteran, such a experienced player that I don't think that there's a concern like that he's always physically hit the wall. That's not what it looks like. So I think he'll be okay. But tonight would be a good night for him to bounce back.
No doubt. All right, just a couple minutes of football here. This might be a record low of football talk, which I'm excited about a little bit. Not that I don't like talking about football, but
we'll be back. We'll be back with football.
Oh no, my camera just left.
Your camera heard you. Your camera heard you and rebelled.
My camera said, "What? They're going to talk about football? I got to get out of here." They're going into the second signing period coming up within the next couple weeks here. There is still a target on the board. Dylan Berryman, who is a 4-star defensive lineman out of the state of Louisiana, is a Nebraska target at this point. So that's one to keep an eye on as we go forward here.
probably the main name on the board left for Nebraska in 2026. We know that Nebraska is going to sign next Wednesday, February 4th, which is the late signing period date. They are going to sign Tanner Vibabule, the quarterback from Las Vegas, who committed to Nebraska earlier this month, to add to the 10 signees from the early signing period. And then, Dylan Berryman as number 12 would be a score, would be an important one for Matt Rhule, because of the position that he plays and because of the need there to continue to add bodies. And, although he will not be a mid-year enrollee, he is somebody that the Nebraska staff believes, because of his size and just the physical stature, that he potentially could come in May, early June, go through that OTA period, and if everything breaks right, be somebody who plays as a true freshman on the defensive line, which is a hard thing to do in the Big Ten.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about 26 and sort of how it turned out for Nebraska and how they got there, and the numbers were lower, obviously, because they had less people leave and stuff like that, and that's part of it. But there has been already a lot of energy that has been put into 2027 for Nebraska. Like they think that class can really reach very high levels with Trey Taylor already in there, and obviously a couple other guys, and Torrey Pittman and stuff like that in the class already. They have their sights set on Ahmad Hudson, who is one of the biggest fishes in the class, period, at this point. So they're like, you've already seen, like, months ago, the transition from, all right, let's wrap up 2026 to let's put all of our chips in here on 2027.
Yeah, Ahmad Hudson he's scheduled to be in Lincoln this weekend for a junior day. He's a 5-star tight end, and he's a basketball player too. So it ties back to what we've been talking about most of this episode. If you look at Ahmad Hudson's social media, and I checked out his Twitter to see if he had made any mention of his upcoming visit to Lincoln. This is the 4th time, by the way, that Ahmad Hudson, the 5-star tight end from Ruston, Louisiana, will make the trip to Nebraska. He has been posting about Nebraska basketball, and so there is some belief, some hope, some expectation on his part that wherever he ends up in school, he's going to be able to be a 2-sport star. So, and I've seen him. It was before one of the home games late in the year. I was out in the area where the Nebraska team gets off the buses in front of the facility, and Ahmad Hudson was there waiting for them. He was on an unofficial visit, and he definitely looks the part too, in person. Somebody that Trey Taylor, Nebraska's QB, in this 2027 class, is very intent on peer recruiting and helping Nebraska land. He wants to be able to throw the football to Ahmad Hudson during his time in Lincoln, and Trey will be in Lincoln and Omaha this weekend as well for the junior day, and also to go meet some of his new high school teammates at Millard South. I chatted with Trey on Saturday on the phone for a bit. He did like 100 interviews with Nebraska media, including me. And I don't know. I was kind of coming out of it. Look, I was going to write something early this week on, all of this. And I don't know, maybe I'm just being bad at my job, but like, other than the like hyper local angle about Millard South and like what's going on with Nebraska high school football, which doesn't really fit the model of what I'm doing at the Athletic so much. It's just a kid transferring schools. Like, he wants to be around his college program. I don't think there's any like giant overarching storylines about this, other than him wanting to be as close to Nebraska and the Nebraska program as he can. So he's going to be in Lincoln for the junior day and up in Omaha to meet some Millard South folks.
I do think it's interesting, and like you said, you would only know this if you're like super, if you're here. But like Millard South has pumped out a lot of D1 guys over the last couple of years, and none of them have gone to Nebraska, which I find that to be like an interesting, sort of mix there, and none of them have, so I don't know. Like there's something in there that's just sort of odd, and then there's the high school football angle, which I think is the one that's sort of taking over around around these parts. But it's an interesting story. And it's, from his standpoint and from Nebraska's standpoint, I'm sure they would love to have him around and be involved with the recruiting class.
I don't think it's like I don't think there's a common thread in like if you're looking for a reason why Millard South hasn't sent a bunch of players to Nebraska in the last couple of years. The only common thread is that Nebraska hasn't offered a lot of them. Did go after the tight ends both of the last 2 years from Millard South, and Chase Lofton in the 25 class, who ended up at Florida State, and then Isaac Jensen, who went to Mizzou in this last class. But Jet Tamala, you have it all to do over again, and you know what's going to go on with Dayton Raiola. Yeah, you're probably offering Jet Tamala, and I don't know if that makes a difference. He's going to Alabama. Maybe Alabama never offers if he's committed to Nebraska early, but that's that's water under the bridge. And I feel like with Millard South's current coaching regime and its previous coaching regime that started this whole run of greatness, it's not like there was ever any kind of disenchantment with Nebraska. I mean, at times at various places in the metro, in Omaha, in recent years, there has been. I don't get that. I've not, in my visits to Millard South, and I've been there in both of the last 2 years, I've not gotten that feeling at all. Like, they are open to Nebraska coming in and recruiting their players, and that's evident, I think, by the coordination here that took place to get Trey Taylor and Tay Ellis, and who knows, maybe some others. Maybe Ahmad Hudson will end up at Millard South. That would
have to build a bigger Buell Stadium.
And people will still expect that he's going to sign with LSU no matter what happens. Ahmad Hudson is like 98% to sign with LSU, according to like the computerized metrics on the different fan recruiting sites, even though the majority of his recruiting experience has involved Nebraska. He's going to have to sign the letter of intent before people in the state of Louisiana believe that he's getting away from Lane Kiffin.
Those people are crazy. You can't tell them nothing. Like they'll find a way to be like, oh, he's moving to Omaha. Great. We're still getting him.
He's still going to sign with LSU. Yeah. And they might be right, because LSU could like throw another $500,000 at him or something like that on the day before signing day. I mean, It happens. It happens.
Yep. All right. That will do it for us today. Look forward to the basketball game tonight and plenty of reaction to it on the Wednesday show. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen today. Make sure you subscribe and follow and do all of that good stuff on audio. We're going to hope that your second listen is Locked On College Football on video. We're going to send you over to the first ever national 24/7 Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. We will talk to you all tomorrow.